Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of The Handmaid's Tale Season 5, Episode 9. This is the penultimate episode of the season, which
hmm
of course means this is where everything is supposed to hit the fan. And I know we had this happy, joyous moment for June Osborne at the end of Episode 8. Who thought that was gonna last?
No, not me. I had a theory that Hannah was either going to die or she was going to get hurt in this whole thing. Nothing has happened to her, but they were not reunited. There had to be a way that they weren't reunited, or what's going on with the show.
No, we have instead just moved around the deck chairs for a little while. Hopefully, this is not the deck chairs on the Titanic, by the way, and it's just going to
Oh.
continue to sink. But we got to make it to the other side of this eventually. We will get to what happened with June,
hmm
what's going on with Serena, how is all that going to end? But of course, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because we are here
hmm
talking through The Handmaid's Tale after every single week. I know this
Yeah.
season is really close to being over, but there's a lot of other cool stuff coming up here on the channel.
Yeah, we're covering American Horror Story. Yellowstone's coming up. We're still covering NCIS. There's all the stuff that's going to be coming up in the new year. So
Yeah.
hit that subscribe button. Follow us over on Instagram at Matt and Just TV. All right, where do you want to start with this?
Okay. I think first and foremost, I want to wag my finger for a second here at
Oh,
Mark because this is the thing, Mark. You may have some good intentions, but I have a few other beefs with you. First of all that weird stuff with Serena over the years, you don't get a pass on that. But also, why were you so confident, or at least so assured, that all of this was going to work out okay? You gave June so much hope. You were just like, this is my moment. This is Gilead, man. Like, they always find a way to wreck things.
yeah. I mean, I get Mark's confidence. He's been planning this a long time. It's a very small group of people that know about what's going on. I mean, what were the chances they were going to find out? 100%, because they did find out, and they shot the planes out of the sky, and Hannah was not rescued.
Ugh.
I know, but we did get to see a little bit more of the Plum Center and sort of a little bit of how the girls are being treated there. And I found it really interesting because there's been a lot of discussion online of is Hannah part of this now? She was brought in so early. Is she just part of Gilead? She's Gilead life. But I mean, we saw with other characters that cannot be the case. We even saw that this season where, someone was brought up in Gilead and they were still like, I think people should be able to do what they want and have some freedoms. And that's why we're bowling, sort of thing. And we saw a little bit of that with Hannah as she was looking through her book, which is all pictures, which I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to be able to read or write. And we saw her write her name Hannah, and I was like, okay, so June probably taught her how to do her name before she was taken. But I was like, where'd she get this pencil from? Because if you're not really allowed to write, I would assume, and I could be wrong, that they are not allowed to draw either, that they're not really allowed to use anything that could let them communicate. But here we are. She had a bunch of colored pencil crayons sitting there. She pulled one of them. She wrote her name. So it gives us a moment to see that she is part of the rebellion. She is not brought into this guild. She is not having it, and she is just waiting.
I mean, she's June's daughter. Like that gave me a significant, just like little glimmer of hope that like through all of this, she's still trying to find a way. And I'm
Yeah.
sure there's probably still a lot of trauma that will need to be unraveled, and there's probably a lot of things that Gilead has still tried to like indoctrinate into her mind over time. But at the same time, she is going to, this is of course provided she gets rescued, which who knows if that's actually going to be the case, but She's got people who will be there to help her.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering, like, after because we haven't seen a lot of Hannah, we haven't read any of the books. So we'll
Yeah.
just put that out there before I put on my tinfoil
Okay.
hat
All right.
theory here that, is Hannah going to have a bigger role kind of going into next season? She is June's daughter. We saw this bit of rebellion where she wrote her name and kind of like, haha, I still can, I'm still myself. Is she someone who's going to try to work things from the inside?
It would be fun. Like, it would be really. I really hope that, if season 6 is the final season, which looks like it is,
Mm.
I want to see more of like an outspread rebellion. Like, I want to see more of Hannah. I certainly want to see more of Janine, by the way, who
I
has just been
know.
just sort of like shoved off to the side. And they're like, we'll get to you when we'll get to you, which is, maybe she looks like she'll be more next week. But it's just like,
Yeah.
really, guys?
Things in Gilead are moving and changing. We got Lawrence in power, where he's is seemingly getting very nervous being in the spotlight. He is
Yeah.
someone who's long been, a commander, but a bit of a recluse and kind of hiding out and just doing his own thing and feeling all kinds of things, shame, guilt, just some helplessness. Like, and now that he's in power, man, he's really stumbling over trying to make connections with other people. We saw everything, the marriage proposal to Mrs. Putnam, where basically she was like, he killed Warren in front of me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, is this a marriage proposal?
Bruh, like, how can you expect that she is going to be like, yeah, sure, let me go get my dress and my veil? It's just like, yes, Commander Putnam was a despicable human being, but it was also her husband that you murdered in front of her.
Yeah, it's interesting to see it play out this way as well.
Yeah.
That it's Mrs. Putnam and it wasn't Serena. And I know Serena has another story going on, and that's probably why Lawrence was like, "Nah, this isn't gonna happen, Serena." But the whole idea where everyone was pushing him to say, like, "Listen, you have to be married. You can't be an unmarried commander." And Serena needs a husband, and she's sort of this miracle tale of the wife that got pregnant, that it works, and if you're then married to her, it all looks very powerful, more powerful than Mrs. Putnam. So I was kind of like, okay, it's a good match, but at the same time, this could have been even more powerful and more interesting with Serena in a position of even more power, because Lawrence is really running things.
Lawrence's whole strategy at this point just seems to be like, I guess this will work. It's like his marriage now. I guess this will work. New Bethlehem. Yeah, I've got some really good ideas, but like, June doesn't want to be a part of it, which understandably, given one, this is Gilead, and two, you pretty much just destroyed every hope that she possibly had of seeing Hannah anytime soon.
Listen, he's giving her, I'm not defending him, but listen, this is where he's coming from. He can't just give Hannah to June. June will take Hannah and leave. And
Yeah.
Lawrence is right about Hannah is now sort of this really important figure in Gilead, and June would be a very important figure as well. She's led this rebellion. For her to come back, this is the best that he can offer, which is that they will be, we will have Hannah still part of Gilead. She will be a wife. She will be, still continuing on, but she will get to see her mom, and they will get to have a relationship. There was no way that this was ever going to be an offer. June will just leave with her.
This is, I think, the real error in Lawrence's mind is that he can be very persuasive and he can introduce arguments. He brought up the nick of it all. He really tried to push things, but the June, I've used this comparison before, but June is Mike Ehrmantraut. June is just like no half measures here. I'm not gonna like take the, oh great, I can get to spend time with my daughter in the oppressive society that you created, and I'm just going to expect that it's going to be okay and that something isn't going to happen. Lawrence isn't going to die one day, and then everything is going to go back to how it was.
Yeah, because let's talk about Nick.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen a ton of Nick. He's with his new wife. She's pregnant. Things are starting to change a little bit for him. We saw Nick and June meet up again, where he did say again that he loves her and there's still that connection there. But I'm starting to wonder really where Nick is landing on things. He was offered a to come up to Canada and to sort of live this free life. And he said no. And he has a wife here and now he's going to have a kid here, but he also has a kid in Canada. So it was kind of interesting to see that he's really kind of moved up the ranks throughout this show. He's now sort of Lawrence's right-hand man. And is he just feeling himself a little too much where he doesn't want to give up the power that he has?
Okay, here is my tinfoil hat on Nick, because this may be overly optimistic. I want to be an optimist at heart here. I'm going to say that first and foremost. But I think, Nick more than anybody knows how horrible a society Gilead is. But I think he also knows that a lot of people who are going to be put into a position of power there, one similar to the one that he is in, they're going to be way worse people than him. And I think he probably somewhere in his head thinks that, okay, this is at least a way for me to monitor this situation. If there ever is an opportunity to change things on a broader level, it gives him a chance to do so. Like, he's got some measure of credibility in this world because, his wife seems to come from a prominent Gilead family and
Yep.
she wants to be there. And,
Mhm.
he can use and sort of finesse these connections to do something. I want to believe in the best for Nick here, but it may be what you said. He may just be feeling himself, and then I'm going to look like a fool later.
No, I think that there is something to be optimistic with him. I think he does realize that if he's going to make changes, he does have to make them from the inside. And we've seen very little of his wife, but we've seen enough to know that she knows all about June. She knows a lot. She knows a lot.
Yeah.
So for her being from a prominent Gilead family and her knowing as much as she does, and she's still standing by him, they're not going to have a handmaid. She's pregnant herself, and it's really hard to know where he lands because he's been a lot like Lawrence, where he just doesn't give very much.
No, he doesn't. And, that could be for his benefit in Gilead, but for us as viewers, it makes me want to pound my head against the wall because I want to believe in something more here. But, speaking of characters who, unlike Nick, just don't really deserve anything and who have done so many terrible things. Serena. Serena, okay, you tried. I'm going to give you a participation ribbon. You have managed to escape the center with this woman with the hand that you've been dealt.
Mhm.
Maybe this is the best solution, but I don't believe for a split second that this is going to be it, because the Wheelers are real morons if they are just like, you know what, we want to just let you go off and not have any eyes on you at all, ever.
The Wheelers are really strange. Like there's some weird stuff going on. Like they seem like they're very pro Gilead, and we've seen Mr. Wheeler has had conversations with the commanders and all of that sort of stuff. But then there was this conversation with Serena and Mrs. Wheeler where Serena's like, "Hey, you know what? Like Gilead sent me down here. The commander sent me down here because they think that I can help recruit other women with my fertility story. Like, let me come to the center." And Mrs. Wheeler's just like, "We don't care what the commanders say. They don't control anything." And I was just like, what do you think is happening here? Like, what do you think you're doing? Like, you have a handmaid, you have a Martha, your husband is seemingly in control of everything. He's talking to the commanders. Like, what do you think is happening here? It was such a weird thing to say that I think she was probably this is going to be my interpretation. She was just scrambling and she didn't really know what to say to stop Serena from going. So we saw Serena, of course, go behind her back, go to her husband, sweet talk him into letting her go. And Serena got slapped around for it, which is not surprising. I
Yeah.
mean, she's trying to manipulate Mrs. Wheeler's husband. Mrs. Wheeler already said no. She went behind her back. Like, I didn't expect it to be quite that violent, but we've seen Serena deal that out as well.
Yeah, we have, and I think the show is probably just trying to make things as just full circle here as possible. And if there is any hope for Serena, I'm not saying I have hope for Serena, but if there's any hope for Serena, the character, to sort of get out of all of this, it's that the Wheelers, they're posers. Like, let's be real here. They're not really in Gilead. They're not really a part of the society. They're basically people who like go and get the skateboard, go and get the equipment and show up to the skate park, and they're just sort of like, hey, look, I'm Tony Hawk. I can do all the tricks. It's just like, no, you don't really understand any of this, Well, why do you want to be a part of Gilead in the first place? That's an entirely different story, but it's just like, you guys are on the outside and you're going to probably do a lot of things wrong or out of line, and maybe that does allow Serena to escape. I just think that they're a little more prepared than that.
And did anyone notice when they were at the fertility center, the Gilead Center,
Yeah.
where we had that moment where Serena was talking to them and Mrs. Wheeler really has control over her husband? It is not the other way around. There was a minute that she shut him down and he just like looked down at the floor. Like, this is a very different type of relationship than what's going on in Gilead. So I really am wondering, are they like this kind of weird hybrid of Gilead and sort of a bit of freedom as well, like of what they're really about? Because they didn't go through the Gilead sort of process. They know it from the outside. So I mean, Mrs. Wheeler seems to have a lot of power still.
Yeah.
But did anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna just say it. We're 17 minutes into this
Do
video.
it.
Okay, listen, I am not a fan of Serena. I think Serena's the biggest villain on the show. We've said that a million times
Yes.
in these videos. However, there was that shot that they had of her standing with Noah with the exit sign above her, and I was like, you need to run. You need to run. Just run through that door. Just take him and run for your life. And I was just like, oh, what's happening? Why am I saying this to myself? Because she really deserves her comeuppance, but I really was rooting for her to run out that door.
I think it's this show. I think they want us to believe, I think, in the capacity for not, I don't think so much like redemption, but for at least like people to be like the tiniest bit better, because it's like the bar, Serena, you have set the bar so low that it is just
Yeah.
basically like, can you just be not as horrible as you've been in the past? Can you just show like the slightest bit of remorse? Like getting away from, the Wheelers, it's at least a victory for Noah. Like that's the biggest
Yes.
thing. We can be team Noah because Noah isn't innocent. Noah has not done any of these awful things.
No, he's done nothing. So we'll see how that all sort of ends up, because now she's basically just a fugitive on the run.
Yeah, this is not going to end well for you, Serena.
No.
No, that's the thing. We've got
I'm just very curious where she's going to run to. I mean, she's been somewhat kicked out of Gilead and sent up to Toronto. Is there a way that she's going to be like, no, I'm just going to go across the border, go through no man's land. I'm going to get back to Gilead and they're going to take me.
this is going to be bad, Serena. It's going to maybe be compelling for next season, but it's going to be bad for you. Well, we've got one episode left, the finale. Let's hope it lives up to everybody's expectations. It's going to be kind of hard to top last season's
Yep.
finale. But go ahead, hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss our reviews of that, American Horror Story, so much more great stuff. And we'll see you here next time.